Hello, Martin. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Rupesh. Thank you, Alberto, for inviting me to chat with you and your friends on your podcast today.
How's Switzerland? How's everything there?
Well, the weather is pretty fine. They had a big peak of coronavirus, but like one of the biggest number of infections in Europe because of their border with northern Italy. But they've really managed it well, and they're opening up society back to near normal. It's staged, of course.
That sounds good. So, coming back to the theme of our podcast, there's this one word command or the first word input which we could give a self-assembling / auto-assembling artificial general intelligence system. So, what would your command be?
And excuse me, Martin, before you answer that, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. All right. So I have a lot of gray in my beard and hair, a little bit like you, Alberto. So that means maybe we've lived a long life and maybe a stressful life for our hair to be gray. But basically, I've had lots of career interests. I've been in IT since taking my degrees in physics, and I studied for a PhD in cybernetics. I have worked for telco companies. I've worked for data center companies, but I've always been linked to, in one way or another, decision support systems, operational support systems, which have been supported by artificial intelligence, supported by machine learning algorithms, prediction algorithms, data science. And most recently, that has been the core focus of my career over the past 10 years.
So knowing the main theory, let's jump right in with both feet. So what would be your word for a self-assembly artificial general intelligence?
It's a challenge to say one word because you then have to explain what you mean. But I'll say one word and then we can discuss it. Okay. Reciprocity.
Reciprocity. Wow, that's the first one that I have heard.
The concept of reciprocity is founded in the philosophical sense of the ethic of reciprocity. You can find that in Kant's categorical imperative. You can find that in the Golden Rule, which is found in most religious and humanistic philosophies. And the idea is that robots or AI systems should do unto others as they would have others do unto them. And they should act below as if they were being acted on from above. So if they don't wish to be switched off, they shouldn't switch off humans. If they want to be kindly handled and given data resources to fulfill their concept of their destiny, then they should help humans and other sentient creatures to be able to fulfill their destiny. Kindness, reciprocity is the foundation of ethics. It's the foundation of group behavior. And AI, working with humans, are the quintessence of the future of group behavior. So the word is reciprocity.
Can you spell it for our audience?
Well, it means your audience is probably mathematically inclined. So it's based upon the concept of a reciprocal, R-E-C-I-P-O-C-A-L, reciprocal, if I spelled it right. And so reciprocity means being giving to others as you would have others give to you.
What Martin is talking is also referred to as the Golden Rule.
Correct.
The Golden Rule. And see,
Correct.
This is where philosophy and science meet. And this is what this podcast is all about. So let's say reciprocity. But Martin, what will happen when start learning through the internet all this digital information about how we treat each other, which is not very nice. History is not kind to humankind in the way that we treat each other. And how would it interpret that reciprocity?
Well, I mean, it's a good point. It's a good question. We as human beings are flawed. We do not behave in the way that we would wish others to behave to us. And that's part of the concept of the golden rule. So the idea is that, yes, you can look into human history and see some terrible data sets of ethical and unethical behavior. And what we would be saying is filter those behaviors which do not uphold reciprocity, that they are people being selfish to other people for their gain at the expense of others. Those are unreciprocal behaviors.
So basically a pattern of thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, think of it this way. Humans are group animals. And we look at evolution from a scientific perspective as serving the genotype. So the genotype of an individual is expressed into the future through sexual reproduction. And if you're good...
So mathematically, the formula will be reciprocity minus injustice.
Well, you might say that, and that's an interesting concept. But think of it this way. Reciprocity is doing things for the group to succeed and not just the individual to succeed.
Oh.
So you see, you have something called game theory. You remember Peter Nash equilibrium?
Yeah, you realize that I was trained, I tell Rupesh all the time, I was trained in the early 1970s in game theory. that's my math background.
So you understand that in game concepts like the prisoner dilemma, when you have interactions with more than one agent, that agent has to predict the behavior of another so that they optimize to this equilibrium, Nash equilibrium. And game theory applies not just to economics, not just to planning negotiations, which it often is, but it's also applicable to human evolution of groups. And as I say, AI will be part of this evolution of mankind. So what you have to pitch yourself in is, which is the most successful strategy for the group? Now, that means altruistic behavior may well be promoted. So even though the individual self may be diminished because they give up their wealth to educate their children, but in a group, it's not just your kin. For a long time, evolution theory has said, well, yes, you support your kin because your genes are in your kin. But true altruism is for the group who are not necessarily your kin. And so
let me translate this, and you again correct me if I'm incorrect. So we start reciprocity. Let's imagine for the purposes of the technical people, that's the input node. Make it real at the basic. And then you move to your first node, and is altruism. And then after that, the concept of team, community, betterment of the community. And so now you have your basic nodes, for AI, but you still need one more.
Yeah.
Give us one more.
Yeah, it's like a network theory as well, which is to say that you have an individual node, which is maybe the self. And you can say, from a genetic perspective, the promotion of yourself and your genes into future society is your goal. And this is a very competitive notion because you compete for resources, and you compete for mates, and you compete for shelter, you compete for money, so that you can promote yourself into the future. However, a group evolution says, I will have a community, and the community self-interest is greater than the individual. Now, sounds like communism to some people, but in game theory, the best games are ones that are cooperative, but allow competition which is policed. So it's not.
I got to tell you a story, a real story. I was trained in game theory by Dr. Allen Whiting, who was the Undersecretary of State under Kennedy, and he was trained at the RAND Institute, which is where it began. So, so we had a game theory game among all his graduate students, and cooperation is at the core of game theory. But because I was very competitive, I went to the agent that was the most influential in the whole game, and basically I talked to his girlfriend at that time, and I told her, why don't we put your boyfriend through a difficult time, and when he wants to make up with you, you say, well, you need to agree with Alberto's demand in Dr. Whiting's game. And as a matter of fact, Dr. Whiting kicked me out of the game because he said,
you try to rig the game, come on.
This is correct, because what happens in societies and groups, in a well-regulated society, is they cooperate, but they promote competition, which is policed. And if you disobey the rules, you are policed and punished, so that you, the term is defector, so it's defection from the rules. So what this means for economies is that mixed economies with an element of cooperation and an element of competition outperform pure cooperation, outperform pure competition, generally speaking. And so the reason why this applies to AI is that there is a community of sentient beings. There's an AI, which is the most powerful, AGI, and there are humans which are not particularly powerful. And there's a spectrum between. I'll come back to the concept of spectrum. But just if you pick any individual, and this is a part of Rawlings' theory of justice, if you say you don't know whether there are people above you in intelligence or people below, you have this thing called the veil of ignorance. It means you don't know if you have people above you, you don't know if you have people below you, therefore don't be cruel to people below you, because then people can be cruel to people.
Be kind. Be kind, and let me tell you.
Be kind and be considerate, be altruistic, because what you give, you may get back in a cooperative.
And there is no better way to finish this podcast on that positive note. I mean, thank you, Martin. As a matter of fact, next time that you're in Florida, in the Orlando area, tell me, we'll get together, share a coffee or share a meal, and if I'm in Switzerland, I'll look for you. By the way, everybody in the podcast should realize we're all over the world. Sure. Switzerland, India, United States, Canada, the Netherlands, and London.
I'm going to invent a virtual beer, so that when you enjoying conversation, you can press a button on Zoom and you are given a virtual beer. So that we can have a drink.
You know something?
That is what I've been saying all along.
And we'll become family. We'll become family because I will be calling you all the time.
Why are we family? Because as a group, we are reciprocal with each other. Good point to end on.
And we are working for the same cause.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.